A white screen fades up. The purple Extant logo appears at the top of the screen. Black text appears that reads, Pathways Crew and Design Showcase and Round Table. Recorded live on Friday the 3rd of February 2023 at Canada Water Theatre. The text and logo fade. An image appears on the white background that has a white person with a buzz haircut and bright clothes who stands upstage right on a blue lit stage, with another person downstage left in the background. A yellow lamp is centre stage. The image and white background fade. An image of an empty stage fades up, and the compere walks onto the stage from stage left.
Hello? Hello, is this? Oh, there we go. Hi, everyone. There's so many people that know me. Hi, Amelia. If you don't know me, my name is Amelia. There you go. Welcome to the Extant Pathways Design Showcase. Wow, nailing it. Good job. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Again, just in case you don't know me, I think most people do. Just in case you don't, my name is Amelia Cavallo. I am a long-time resident artist, I guess, of Extant. I've been working with them since 2007. As a performer, I was one of the Pathways director cohort. I've done lots of things with this company. I have a lot of love for this company, and I would imagine you all do too. Woo! Yes! And so, quick visual description. I am a slim white human, currently with a very funky denim like onesie sort of suit on and some pink trainers. I got complimented by somebody in Canary Wharf who told me I looked very cool, so I'm going to take their word for that. I've got some funky dangly earrings that look like hoops that are kind of melted metal. It's quite fun. And I've got a lot of funky rings and a cane that is rainbow colored. Make of that what you will. If you're making assumptions, you're probably right. And I've got short brown hair. And I'm holding an iPad. This has got my notes on it. I'm not like surfing the web or whatever. Maybe I am, you don't know. But anyway, the aim of Pathways is to influence, embed, and improve greater awareness of and accessibility for blind and visually impaired practitioners across the theater industry. So since 2018, Extant has delivered Pathways training for visually impaired actors, directors, writers, and now crew and design. And you can applaud for that, by the way. This showcase is a culmination of the work of these visually impaired theater makers. They've been training and developing their craft for 9 months, inspired by masterclasses, shadowing, mentoring, and collaboration. And now is where I will try and remember where Caroline is sitting and double check that I said everything I needed to say.
Yeah, we're good.
Woo! All right, well then shall we see the first piece?
Yay!
Wonderful! Well, this is something called 1-to-1, and I will let the designers who worked on this introduce the piece as a whole. So please give a lot of love and a round of applause to Paula, Lily, and Louie.
Hello everyone, my name is Louis. I am a white 30-year-old male with shoulder-length brown hair and blue eyes. I was primarily the lead in sound design for this piece. 1-to-1 has a lot of sort of location transitions throughout, so I was always trying to illustrate and communicate those changes through the sound. With better equipment, I wish I could have gone out and maybe done more real-world recordings to implement into this, but thankfully Lily here stepped up and was able to do a lot of that for me. Thank you. With more time and with more time, I would have liked to have been able to fix some certain errors. Like, for example, we had a planned kitchen soundscape, but unfortunately, due to the way the speakers work here, it didn't work with my mix and I didn't have time to fix it, so sorry about that. And also, we spent a while trying to figure out how to best represent a internet call on stage. It's a lot harder than it sounds. And honestly, I settled on one idea, but then due to some unforeseen technical issues, wasn't able to realise that fully either. But regardless, I think we've still, got a heck of a show to give you. So positively.
I'm Lily. She, her. I have golden brown hair that I've curled today. I'm olive skin, and I'm petite. I'm wearing a long black dress with white collar and cuffs and black tights and flat ankle boots. I worked on the lighting design, also experimented with sound design and recordings, and also supplied most of the props for the showcase to reduce costs. For the lighting, for dramatic scenes and for scenes with like a crowd or clapping, I've chosen to use a Bugs Bunny style spotlight to add the play within a play sense. And for the sound design, I did a lot of recordings with my binaural headset to try to give a more immersive and spatial effect. But unfortunately, I don't think that quite comes across with the speakers. I experimented with. We wanted a whistling kettle for the kitchen scene, and I didn't have a whistling kettle, so I had the sound of the whistling kettle, and then I put that onto a speaker, and then I put that onto my stove, and then recorded it with my binaural headset to try and sound like it's I've got that in my kitchen.
Well, unfortunately, our third member, Paula, could not be here today. He was primarily in charge of sets, but I'll try to fill in best I can. So, stage right, we have our kitchen area, which is containing 2 chairs. Stage left, we have some boxes that represent our supermarket area. Centre stage, we've got 2 chairs, and the whole stage is kind of represents a rehearsal space as a part of that. So I hope I covered everything there. Thank you.
An actor walks onto the stage from stage right and sits at the desk.
I can't start all over again.
Struggle seeing groups of people online. Family Zooms have got tougher. Smiling boxes filled with 2 more people. Remind me how alone I am.
Boris has announced bubbles. What bubbles exactly?
I cannot test myself. I feel so stuck.
And cut. Alright, great stuff, guys. I feel like we're really beginning to see Leslie and Lucy's characters emerging now. So like I said, from now on, we're going to try and look at ways of transforming Trapped from screen to stage. So, keep looking at your lines, and don't forget our one-to-ones start next Thursday. Sam, you are up first.
Oh, Alex, you're finally up for a one-on-one. Oh, you ready for my close-up, Mr. Bond?
Yeah, good stuff. And I'm going to close the meeting now, Riverside, so it's same day, not quite same place, next week.
So, ventilation, hand gel, wipes, spare masks, water, shoes. Is that enough of a gap between our chairs?
Okay, we'll have the acting space lengthways along the back wall there, and I think Leslie and Lucy's spaces maybe here and here. audience end on. Unless, is it more interesting to play it in the round? We'll decide that later. We're looking at characters, aren't we?
Oh shit, I've left my session plans on the kitchen table.
Shit! Okay, doesn't matter. They're a lovely bunch. It'll be fine. Okay, mask up. Here we go.
Alex!
Oh, hi Sam. Hi.
Oh, sorry. Are you not ready for hugs yet?
Sorry, not quite there yet. No. Do take a seat, Sam. It is really good to see you in the flesh. I mean.
And you. And not to worry about the hug. I know we're not all in the same place yet. Oh, I like your mask. Purple's my favourite colour. Do you want me to wear mine?
Oh. It might be a little tricky once you start acting, so we'll just keep a little distance for now, shall we? Thank you for coming in early. I do really appreciate it. I thought these one-to-ones would be a comfortable way for us all to get back into things, you know, after we've been rehearsing online for so long.
You know I'd do anything for you and Riverside. I managed to get someone to cover the end of my shift so I could be here on time and get changed.
Good stuff. Shall we look at the section in Trapped where Lucy is shopping? Top of section 3. Now, I wanted to try it without Leslie's lines, just to see how it would sound as a monologue. Have you got your script?
Yeah, righty-ho. Yes, it's on my phone. Okay. Right, ready, steady.
Okay, imagine I'm the audience, and you go stand up stage left. Oh, no, sorry, back a bit, sort of by the wall, get further over, a little bit further, that's perfect, grand. Okay, now, I've got a couple of props things I want to try out, but just try and ignore that. And action.
I got into online shopping. Converses are my guilty pleasure. I've got all of the colours of the rainbow. It's like what the lady in the shop said. You're an adult. It's not like your feet are going to grow anymore. So go mad. So I did. I had one. I went home that night and I pressed the button and I had one pair come through. 2, 15 pairs. Gosh, even the delivery driver commented. How did I do?
Yeah, I really liked your energy. Sorry, I got a little bit carried away through the shoes at you there. I'm sorry. But no, I thought you really empathised with Lucy and sort of showed her struggle under the comedy. Yeah, well done, Sam.
I'm really glad that you liked it. You know, I really worked hard on my delivery. You know, the lockdown wasn't easy for me. At first I was stacking shelves and then the next minute...
On streets up and down the country, people continue to applaud the key workers, such as supermarket worker Sam Saunders, in the now routine Thursday night clap.
You're amazing, Sam! Oh, thank you. My pleasure. And then the next minute, can I stop? Can you not crowd me, please? Oh, Sam, please don't take that loot. Leave that alone, please. Oh,
Look! That man took the last 6 cans of beans!
Hey, stop that, I'll get you barred! Animals.
I don't know how you coped, Sam. To be honest, I've barely left my house since the first lockdown, except for the occasional bit of exercise. And, you know, the school run when they're open. We still get all our shopping delivered.
The doctor said I should stay at home, but I never got the shielding letter. Anyway, I like my job and I like love my customers. I needed a routine, I needed a purpose. Besides, government cut my support hours at the start of lockdown. So my house was just a mess. And I had just things going on around my head and couldn't stand that.
Yeah, there was a lot going on in my house. No time to sit and think. My wife and I... Emma, please, will you try and be reasonable?
What did the consultant say? Are these the results?
Yes, look. Inconclusive, more tests needed.
Surprise, surprise. All you care about is this theatre group and the endless funding applications.
That is not fair. If it wasn't for this theatre group, I wouldn't be bringing in any money at all. It's not easy working in the arts during a pandemic, you know. We can't all have cushy jobs as video conference consultants.
Video conference specialist, actually. Change the record.
I don't know why you even want another baby. You don't talk to the 2 children we have upstairs, desperate for your attention.
I'm not getting any younger, Alex.
Oh, and I suppose he's happy to give you one, is he? If I can't. This guy you've been talking to.
What? How do you know?
Dad, I need you. Ma.
Anyway, we've got plenty to be cracking on with, so shall we have a look at section 6, Lucy, end of lockdown.
I'm sick. It may or may not be COVID. I'm probably just stressed. I made the mistake of telling the practice nurse all my symptoms, and now she's cancelled my visit and said get tested. But I can't test myself.
Juggling things. In the first lockdown, being dad, husband, keeping up with my work for Riverside and teaching the kids.
I've lost my independence. I'm scared of going back to the old way.
The teacher's Zoom videos got a little better this time round. I mean, hearing my youngest, Tim, laughing online with his English teacher, you know, that's a special moment, being a fly on the wall. Learning strategies have changed a lot since the 90s, you know. I find I learn something new every day, although a lot of it's beyond me, especially maths. At night, if I've got any energy left, I swat up on the lessons for the next day. I don't know how they do it, teachers. You know, I think they deserve medals. I can barely teach 2 children, let alone 30. And my Sophie is 12 going on 17. She's a real teenager all of a sudden. You know, she locks herself in her room for hours, spends a lot of time online, God only knows what doing, not schoolwork, that's for sure. And I don't know how to... And Emma's no help, you know? She fucked off. As soon as they announced that the schools were going to be open in a fortnight, she took the dog and her computer. Not the kids, just the bloody dog. You know, off to play Happy Families with Michael.
Alex, I'm here. Have you thought of some counselling?
Yeah. 60 quid an hour just to ask stupid questions and make pointless lists. You know, as if I've got time to read a book or do anything for myself at the moment. But no, quid a minute. I mean, I'm exhausted. You know, I can't function mentally or socially. You know, the idea of being in even a small group freaks me out. I jump if someone has even the slightest tickle. I'm, you know, we're all expected to get back to normal as if nothing's happened. But it's only been 6 months. It's not exactly gone away, has it?
No, but we've had our vaccines and boosters. I mean, we've got to get on with it sometime.
I mean, people are walking around without a care in the world. I mean, even these one-to-ones are daunting.
Oh, maybe I should go.
Sam, sorry. I'm sorry, that was most unprofessional of me.
It's okay, you're human. Look, the scripture will be here now.
Thank you. You know, this production and my work with Riverside, that's all that's keeping me going at the moment. And my kids, of course.
Have you thought of maybe writing it down? Not a list, maybe some poetry? You know, in the first lockdown, I was really finding it tough. And I went onto Facebook and I saw this ad for an open mic poetry session by Zoom. I didn't even know how to use Zoom until I started working with Riverside and you. So I signed up for this event. There was all these people that had opened up their hearts. And the organiser one day, she said to me, would you like to read something? And so I thought, what the heck? So I did.
Give a hearty welcome to the latest poet on the block and her lockdown poem. It's Sam Saunders.
Good evening. So the clock strikes 7 and I awake to yet another day alone. Oh, how my heart does ache. All I want to do is shout and groan. I go downstairs and I turn on the television. Stay home, stay safe, stay alive. The Prime Minister is banging on yet again about his mission. But if I stay in all day, I'll stagnate. How will I survive? My workmates tell me to be careful. Why take risks? People like you could get seriously ill and wind up in hospital. I laugh it off. I carry on as best I can. But inside, I think, what if they're right? With labels over our heads, no chance to prove why we're important, why we matter. Disabled people like me would be left alone, discarded. Do not resuscitate, just remove.
Gosh. Sam, I didn't realise you had it so tough. You know, I know you live alone, but to have felt so isolated and to have such worry on your shoulders and yet still see beauty in the world and navigate all the changes. Wow, so just, wow.
I didn't have the luxury of family, however messy.
Yeah. To have done all that on your own, you know?
Alex, you could come along. You know, I read a poem every time now. They live stream it via Zoom. For those that don't want to come in person.
I don't think that's really me, son.
Alex, it's time to move on. You've got to do something for you.
Look, we've still got a few minutes left. Why don't we get back to the script? Is there something you'd like to focus on?
Alex, if you don't mind, I think I'll call it a day. I've run out of juice, and I'll see you next week.
Okay. Yeah, that's no problem, Sam. Thanks again for today.
You've helped more than you know.
Okay. Better reset. Okay, who's next? It's time to step up, Alex. There's too much at stake. Call Goldilocks. Hi. Emma. Can we meet?
The lights fade to black and then come up again on an actorless stage. Compare walks onto the stage.
Hello, it wasn't that. Oh, I've still got my mask on. Hello, that's fine. I've got a rainbow mask on. It's a theme. Anyway, hello. How did you enjoy that? Yay! So just really quickly, they're going to do a bit of a reset of the set for the second piece. This is going to take about 5 minutes. So please just hang tight, talk amongst yourselves, and we'll be back with the second piece in a little bit. Okay?
Amelia leaves, and the lights fade to black and come up again on the studio stage that has been redressed. Amelia steps back onto the stage.
Hello, we're back! Woohoo! So, I think we should just go straight on and see the second piece. How do you feel about that?
Yes!
Wonderful! Well, this next piece is called Real Work. And, yeah, very good. And it was designed, and hang on, I'm looking at my notes. I'm doing a great job. I'm very blind, so don't worry. This is going to take a second. It's fine. Sorry. Nailing it. Okay. Real Work was worked on by the team Ian, Avi, and Martin. So they're going to introduce that now. Please welcome them to the stage.
Hi, my name is Ian Rattray. I am a white male, brown hair, blue eyes, pronouns he, him. I'm part of the Real Work team. I worked on sound design for this show. I took my influence from basically clues that Louis, who wrote the script, put in, which is basically it's the inner thoughts of our main character, Max. And we've also blended some of Nigel's thoughts in there too. So we have kind of 4 basic states or environments. So we have an opening segment which starts from outside and ends up indoors. Then we have what we call our kind of normal office state, which I've used just a very generic kind of clock to lend a bit of sort of weight to it and sinisterness, that's a word. Then we got our dungeon state, which is Max's kind of thoughts, his inner thoughts. So we go to a voiceover kind of voiceovers laid over this, so you hear what he's thinking in that moment, and that's also coupled with Nigel's thoughts. And then we also have a 4th state, which is Max facing the audience, so I'm breaking the 4-ball state. And again, these are Max's desires and inner thoughts. And that's it really. I'll leave it for you to judge.
I'm Martin, a white male, pronouns he, him. I have blue eyes and dark brown hair. I'm wearing a green hoodie and blue jeans. And I work on the lighting for this show. I basically designed 3 separate lighting states. Red for the dungeon state, like a cold blue for the normal state, yeah, and the spotlight for the
4th state.
For the 4th state.
There is a slight change as well. We're doing the tech. It was decided there are two of these other states, 4th states as we call them. And one is spotlit, one is actually more of a wash because Max moves around within it. So there's a slight change which was made.
Hello guys, my name's Avi. I worked on the set design. Behind me is a load of boxes which represents a castle, which represents the state of mind of Max's mind. On the table we have a red cloth, velvet, sort of very soft, which brings out the red lighting for when Max goes through his thinking science and path. I'm an Asian male, 5'6", wearing green khaki trousers, green khaki top, white chains, black hat and a white stick. and thank you very much. Enjoy the show.
The lights fade to black and come back up as Max walks onto the stage.
All right. Bag packed, directions set, clothes decent, trusty sword, onward. I've never done one of these before, but it can't be rocket science, right? I don't want to beg for pocket money anymore. It's time for freedom.
This is an audience announcement. To Max, at times, this room can appear like a dungeon. In Max's imagination, he is carrying a colourful sword and sees Nigel as a medieval lord, wearing a bright red cloak, sitting at a desk which is draped in a red cloth. Opposite is a small, child's stool which Max approaches. Thank you.
Enter!
Hi, I'm here about the general assistant job.
Yes. Max, is it not?
At your service.
You may address me as Nigel.
This is an audience announcement. Max is 16 years old. He's a 6'2", white male with dark brown hair and blue eyes. He is wearing a pair of blue jeans, a green-coloured top and smart black shoes. He carries a Pikachu Pokemon backpack. Interesting. Opposite him is Nigel. He is a 40-year-old white male wearing a bright red cloak with a black trim, a white shirt, a red tie, navy trousers, and black shoes. Thank you.
His hand is out. Take it! Can't do it. Come on! Got it.
Wow. Here's an odd one.
You may sit.
Yes, apologies.
I trust your journey was without incident.
Absolutely. Completely without incidents. No, I can't tell him how I got lost and nearly ended up trespassing in another warehouse. Someone did ask if I needed help, but I pretended not to hear them. I want to be self-reliant. No, I need to be self-reliant.
Would you like refreshment?
No, that's okay. I have some water in my bag.
Good. Now, I can see from your CV that your grades are exemplary. You do understand that this role will require you to be flexible and undertake a variety of tasks, including but not limited to assisting customers around the store, operating checkout, stacking shelves, and assisting in the warehouse, amongst other duties. Is that clear?
Yes, understood.
Sir, why do you want this role?
Well, because the precise reason being I am still in sixth form, so I need something part-time. I've not had employment before. Eye contact, eye contact!
Oh, you still can't manage the eye contact.
So I've got to start somewhere, you know. And you can see from my grades, I am pretty sure I can do this.
I see.
He's writing a lot. I think that's good.
Oh, just another couple of hours to sweet freedom.
Next, tell me a little about yourself. About you. What makes you tick? Hopes, fears, desires?
Buy time, buy time!
Oh, when I was on that side of the desk, I barely knew what to say either.
Excuse me for a moment. I just need a drink.
This is an audience announcement. Max's water bottle has a Pokemon Eevee design with a red cap. It's very cute. Thank you.
Oh, think. What can you say without making an idiot of yourself?
Come on.
I'm 16.
Mm-hmm.
I live with my mum, dad, and sister.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a cat called Beaker.
Mm-hmm.
I don't intend to live there forever, of course, but that's why I'm here, looking for a way. I'm in sixth form.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing IT, art, and maths, but that's on my CV. I don't even know that's happened. I like to play video games in my spare time. I got infinite chat balls. I sometimes like to draw. My favourite colour is green.
Okay, that's...
And I have a swimming certificate from when I was 10.
Yes, thank you. That's enough. Next, tell me one of your main strengths.
Okay. shouldn't be too hard.
This isn't going great. I've tried asking if I can offload interviews to my deputy and team leaders, but no. It has to be me. It has to be bloody me.
So, for strengths, I'm very focused. Maybe even kind of obsessive. If I'm into something, I tend to memorize all I can about it. For example, I can name any Pokemon on site. So
Indeed. And what would you say as to weaknesses?
I think it's going okay. Hard to tell though. Oh, no!
I suppose, I can be a little fussy. Sometimes I don't get to bed when maybe I should.
Go on.
And I struggle to socialise with people a lot of the time because...
Because...
Oh, don't say it. He wouldn't get it. That how I sometimes interact with the world can be... Oh, just say something else. Anything else.
Oh, come on. You were doing better.
Because I'm a bit shy. Maybe you can tell.
You do realise that duties such as counter work will require you to interact with
people,
customers. Do you think you could manage that?
No, I didn't think it would be this hard! Yeah. I guess it was a bit over the top of me to expect them to be so impressed with my CV that they would jump up! Oh, shake my hand, yeah! Skip the interview, and offer me something straight away! Oh, I even imagined getting a promotion within my first day, so... No, wait. Yes, so maybe I should fight back with the daydreaming! Hua! Hua! Yeah! Yeah! I just want to prove to all of you, to everyone, that you know, I can manage life. I can't live at home with my family forever. I want my space.
Head Nigel, please come to aisle 24. That's Nigel to aisle 24. Thank you.
I'm needed. That brings us to the end.
Okay, yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any questions before you go?
Well, when do you think I might hear back?
Oh, I'd wait a week or two, perhaps. But listen, I can't really say if this job is for you. I mean, we have also had quite a lot of very experienced applicants, and that does make it more difficult, of course. And
It's okay, I understand.
I know, but thank you for coming in, seriously, and you keep trying, and I do have to go now.
Max leaves the stage and the lights fade to black. The lights fade up again and the actors take a bow.
And just to make sure everyone that needs to be named is named. First off, this is the first half done, except for a bit of thank yous that I'll get through in just a moment. But just to reiterate what we just watched, so we had 1 to 1, which was written by Tam Gilbert, directed by Anthony Goff, Associate Director, Audio Description and Movement, Ada Eravama. Actors Douglas Walker and Anita Brazzi. And then we just saw real work by Louis Thrift. Director Anthony Goff. Associate Director Ada Eravama. And the actors Douglas Walker and Luke Fox. And just to close out everything, let's give a lot of love to all of the Pathways crew and design folks, the whole cohort: Paula Connolly, Louis Thrift, Lily Ann, Amy Bethan Evans, Ian Rattray, Martin Fox, Karen Cullings, and Avi Ramreka. And we also please give some love to the dramaturg for the showcase, Louisa Sanfield. Showcase director, Caroline. Took us off, if I can say the word worked. No. And so, yeah, thank you, Caroline. Also, thanks to the wonderful Extant team, including Maria Ashade. Also, thank you to the new administrator, Jamie. Thanks to Alex, our stage manager, and our technician, Steven. Our 4 fabulous access workers, Chakoti, Alice, Marina, and Darius. Our BSL interpreters, Sharon and Deborah. And also, of course, the Canada Water Theatre. Oh yes, and of course, another thank you to funders. It's always nice to have some money to do stuff, isn't it? So thank you specifically for this to Arts Council England, Spectacle Makers, and Thomas Puffington Trust. Also, one final note for anybody who, regardless of when you found out what Pathways is and what it's been about and what people have been up to, there's been an external evaluator, Dr. Rachel Hutchinson, who is going to be finalizing a report on Pathways that should be available for people to peruse at the end of March. And this is going to track the entire 4 years and all of the achievements, all of the discoveries, and basically, reflect on the practice, as we say in the biz. So please keep an eye out for that, or a nose out, whatever your dominant sense is. Now, we're going to have a 10-minute break, and I have been asked to remind you, and I've put it in capital letters because it's very important. If you would like to stand and chat, get the hell out of the theater, all right? If you need a wee or anything like that, or just want to get some air, please leave the theater so they have time to change things around. If you do just want to sit and hang out for the 10 minutes, you're also welcome to do that. But yeah, you've got 10 minutes do what you need to do and we'll come back for the round table. Thank you very much.
Amelia leaves and it fades to black. The image fades up and Amelia takes to the stage along with 3 panellists.
Hello, welcome back. Alright, we are now at the roundtable discussion part of this event. And as a reminder, this panel is to discuss, unpack, and kind of unpick challenges that exist for blind and visually impaired people in the design and crew industry. There are, as you know, as this pathway strand was trying to address, there are not a lot of blind people in theatre tech. And that is an issue with the industry, and definitely not the blind people. So it'd be good to sort of get at least even a general view of how this is going to, what the lay of the land is, really. So we have 3 fabulous panelists behind me. They're sitting at these very high, like, cabaret-style circle tables, looking very distinguished. I actually don't know who's sitting where, so this is going to be fun. But first we have, I'll name everyone, and then what we're going to do is they're going to each do a presentation where they chat about what they came to chat about, and then please feel free to think of some questions for them. We will do a Q&A afterwards. We will have the lovely Alex roving around the audience with a microphone should you wish to ask something. So our panelists are Dr. Erin McPeak, Nevi Kusakora, and Thor. Thor, how do you say your surname, please?
McIntyre Burney.
McIntyre Burney, lovely. All right, so first presentation is going to be Dr. Erin McPeak, who has many accolades, including Associate Lecturer and AHRC Research Fellow. So take it away, Erin.
Thank you, Amelia. My name's Erin McPeak. I spent, probably 25 years working in theatre. I became registered blind in 2002, hence I've got a lovely white stick, mostly for others, but I do use it to find elevations myself. I began working in theatre 40 years ago, actually, this year. My first paid gig was a sound and lighting technician on a run of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I then went to work at the Grand Opera House in Belfast, then to the National Theatre via some touring companies around Ireland and Europe, and then to Scottish Opera, Scottish Ballet, and then my well-paid job was assistant head of lighting at the Royal Opera House. I had to give theatre up when I became registered blind because I was doing a lot of teaching as head of lighting and sound at the National Youth Theatre. But I realised at one point that there was maybe many tons of equipment being raised above the audience and the stage. And I called some of it back in again to inspect it, and I realised that some of the students had not made it secure. So it could have fallen down, and I thought, I need to question my own capacity here. So I decided to step away from it. I did do some designs for children's theatre, which is great fun because you can make everything lovely and sparkly, and there isn't too much critical if it's sparkly enough, and the water and the shimmering and the more sparkling, that works out well. But I've been involved in this excuse me, in this project at a limited level, running some classes on lighting and on production management, and I found it really interesting. But it's also highlighted some things. I also teach postgraduate students in art and design subjects, and I've also had a bit of involvement at Wimbledon College of Art in the theatre department, but in the past. The thing I found with teaching, and COVID has made the world much more difficult to operate in. The phrase, if you've got a problem, get the app. I don't use a smartphone. So these solutions, these digital solutions are supposed to solve everything, but the theatre is a very complicated place. It's somewhere where science and the humanities kind of collide in many cases literally. But it's incredibly complicated, and technology, certainly with lighting and sound and stage machinery, the complexity has got bigger and bigger and bigger. So in order to learn those things, the way we tend to approach complicated, especially scientific things, so I'll stay away from the creative stroke writing and directing, stay out of the humanities, but in the sciences, what we do is reductionism, which is to say, break things down into the smallest possible parts and learn those parts. Then you can see them assemble. But the difficulty with reductionism is if you get it wrong, it's the old want of a horseshoe nail. So one tiny thing goes wrong and it all comes crashing down. So that's problematic. It's also been exacerbated by the opportunities for learning. Universities have got more students, less resources, less space, less accommodation. So that's not really the environment that is ideal, or certainly the environment that I experienced. So it's become much more complicated. We're expecting a lot more from a lot less, and these digital resources are supposed to solve the problems, but they don't, because in a theatre, reductionism ceases to work when biological systems are involved in. So you've got machines, and then you've got people, and then you've got all of this other kind of creative ambitions. So it's for me, it's become more difficult as a disabled person in observing it, in that there are more things to handle, but the resources to manage them and the resources to provide accessible things have not increased. So the demand has increased, the supply has decreased. And in fact, if you actually look at costs, now we've got this lovely new inflation thing happening again. That decrease is actually much bigger than it appears. So problematic. Learning is also problematic. Quite near here, Flint's Heron Supply relocated. Now they used to have they probably the UK's premier kind of theatrical suppliers of paints, hardware, tools, all those products. Now you used to be able to go and look at those things. Now you can't. You just have to look at an online catalogue. And if you don't know the name of something, you don't know what the correct title of a particular product is, it's really difficult to learn it. So having that knowledge and vocabulary, I think it's unavoidable. It's incredibly important, and it's becoming more and more difficult to kind of get that information into the minds and bodies of students. It's also further made more difficult in that in the United States, which, okay, we tend to learn things and in English, they have a different language for everything: sound, lighting, staging. So the titles of objects and tools are different. So again, that problem is exacerbated, because if a student isn't aware of something, then they may be looking at American references, that then when they come to talk to their peers, no one knows what they're talking about. So the lack of those showrooms, so if you want to buy something, it's very difficult to go and look at the object. We see the high street declining, but in professional terms, the only chance that students and people that are learning have is to go to trade shows. These are expensive, you know, to buy tickets for, probably more expensive than going to see a production. And what you're going to encounter is a bunch of people that are trying to sell stuff to a bunch of people that are trying to buy stuff, and those that are learning have become more and more sidelined. Obviously, there are a lot of companies that have a good ethos of engagement, and in placing, in taking people on. I can think of lots of examples of people that have been given work experience, paid work experience, please. Lots of theatres around the country, and that goes for able-bodied and disabled people alike. And that is, I think, the place that it needs to happen, because we can't, even if we had the space and the time and resources, we can't actually teach all the stuff. We can't show all of the scenarios and situations. So that experience, particularly the ones that I witnessed, certainly in the 1980s and 90s, was touring theatre houses or receiving houses, which you, as working as a technician, you don't know what's going to come out of that lorry. They may have sent you some plans and some information in advance, but lorries are going to turn up, it's going to get unloaded, it's going to get built, the lighting and the sound rigs are going to get put up, and only by doing that and seeing, doing a kind of a Ray Cooney farce, or a Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, or ballet production or an opera production, they're all very, very different. Stand-up comedy, kind of variety acts, the gang show, I've done quite a few of those. But those kind of mixed bills of encounter really provide people with a great experience and a learning of things that by doing it, because you can tell people things, but it's very, very difficult. And I noticed working on this project, trying to do online classes, and thinking, this is sort of, I'm scratching the surface, and I've been doing this for 40 years. And I don't know very much, and I know that I don't know very much. So how can I kind of compress this into a few hours of communication? So it's incredibly difficult to select that. And I do believe that only by immersion in a space and in a company situation that people can really learn. And it is, theatre's quite a tough game. I mean, there's no such thing as early. On time is late. So that ethos of work, I think, has to be experienced. And my feeling is that the larger companies that have the resources and that have not just the resources to manage placements for work experience, but they also have the facilities available that people can experience different things and then find their own way. I noticed that in the touring houses, the people that started out working on, with props or in the flies or on stage, then decided to refine what they did and took an interest in a particular direction. So it's not until you're exposed to those things, I don't think that making a decision, I'm going to be well, you don't really know until you've tried it. I did make some notes, but of course I can't read them. It's just the fact that I've made them maybe help me to.
Aaron,
yes.
can I give you a minute?
Sure. Oh, good. That's splendid. But yeah, I do think that I mean, I could talk about this for months, but I do think that it's become more and more difficult, particularly for disabled people, to access theatre and film and television. There's been a lot of fuss being about film and television provision, particularly toilets on set. But I do think that the larger institutions there is a hook that they can be hung by, which is to say that they make all sorts of declarations about their ethics and values and ethos that needs to be exploited, and it's by opening those doors to get people into position, paid, that's where the situation can be improved, because as it stands, it's a few enthusiasts that have to get very sharp elbows and poke their way into positions, but otherwise, generally, I think it's a pretty inaccessible place. And the excuse that is often used that it is a dangerous place. It's dark, it's dangerous, it's got things you can bang your head on, and that's an excuse that's been kind of thrown up, and I don't think it needs to be. That there is a, by using their own terms and claims about their ethics and desires, that we can actually open some doors and get some people engaged more rigorously. I think I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, lovely. Next, we have Nevi Kuchikora, who is one of the one of the theater technicians and sound engineers for Brixton House. Thank you, Nevi.
Hello. How are we all doing? Are we all still awake? A theatre syndrome, isn't it? You're in a hot room, comfy seats, slowly start falling asleep. Anyway, my name is Nevi. Okay, a little bit of background for me before I get on. I am a theatre technician, originally born in Zimbabwe, moved to South Africa, became a drama teacher. That was the worst choice I ever did. And then decided that I needed to pursue a career of some sort. My thinking behind it was that when I was in Zimbabwe, I was helping a lot in the theatre there. Fun fact for you, there's 8 theatres in Zimbabwe and only 1 is running. There's only 1 theatre that is still currently running. All the other theatres have been changed into churches, or they've been changed into bars, clubs, but that was a decision made by the government. The one theatre that is still running is a theatre that no, I hate to say it this way, but no black person can be allowed to be in. But I forced my way in. As Alan said, you need to have very sharp elbows. I forced my way in, and I started off as a performer, and from there I then went into doing tech theatre, and then my family moved because Zimbabwe was starting to become nasty, so we moved to South Africa, where I then became a drama teacher. And then I came into the UK, where I tried to make my own little career of some sort. And I studied at LAMDA, and after studying at LAMDA, I was a freelancer. I did my freelance time, and then Brixton House was just opening, and they needed a sound engineer for the first show. Started that first show. From there, I was stuck in the building. I became the head technician at Brixton House. And I'm just going to tell you a little bit of what I do as a technician at Brixton House. So my role as lead technician, I'm a step below the boss. I have a crew of 3 people, and with those 3 people, I need to make sure, A, they're entertained. Because the way I look at it is, what other job are you paid to play with toys? If you think about it, in theatre, all you're doing is playing with toys. All you are doing is playing. You are just on stage having fun. At the end of it, you get paid for it. You are setting up, putting speakers in, putting lighting in. Those are your toys. And you are getting paid to play with your toys. Hence why I say, keep the team entertained. Keep them knowing where their toys are, how to use their toys, and how to make something out of their toys. That is sort of like I say mine, but it was more my mom who said, you need to stop playing with your toys and come home sometime. And that sort of became my thing of saying, I have toys, I get paid to play with my toys. And with my role at Brixton House, it doesn't just stick to being head technician or lead technician. I am also a sound engineer. I can mix a full band. I can play playback music off a computer, deal with QLab, all that, I can do that. But then also it extends to lighting. I can program lights. I can design a show. It also extends to set construction. I can build. Anything you tell me to build, as long as you give me dimensions and specifications, I will build it. And with that knowledge that I sort of gathered from Zimbabwe till now, I can come up with anything to make a certain issue work. If we say, for example, you have a trap door, and the trap door is normally not there, but you want it to be there, I will go, right, have you thought about digging a hole in the theater? I could do it. So it's just that quick response to certain issues that designers are struggling to work out on. But then also saying I work with the designers, I then work with the sound designer and ask them, where do you want your speakers? What kind of imagery are we looking at? By imagery, what I mean is, if you walk into a room that has nothing, no furniture, nothing, what's the sound you hear in that room? You hear an echo. If the designer says, I want an echo, I would walk in the theater and see whether it's worth doing an echo without speakers or adding the echo in by using mics and speakers and doing an artificial echo. But that's because I've done sound quite a lot, that I can tell you where the imagery is and how to create that imagery that you are thinking of in your mind as a designer. And when it comes to lighting, I can tell you where a person is going to be and how I think is best for that person to be lit. I am not the designer, but I'm assisting the designer, helping the designer with that brain of, this is what I feel will be right for the show. Of course, the designer has their own image of what the show is going to be, but normally designers that I've met, they've got one thought, which is, this is what I see. But you coming in as a technician, you've never seen the show, you've never dealt with anything to do with the show, and you see the lighting and you go, ooh, I think we need top light on this. The designer then goes, oh, I didn't think about that, thank you. It's just, as a technician, you're sort of supporting every department. Sound, stage, lighting, stage management, you're sort of supporting all of them. But then, with working at Brixton House, that sort of gave me another eye into different things, which is, I'm not always going to be lead technician, I'm not always going to be a sound associate or a sound engineer or that. I am also going to be the production manager. I have to say yes to certain things, I have to say no to certain things. There are certain things that we would say yes to, but we then go, maybe not. We can't fly a person in this building, we don't have the equipment to fly a person. So it's also having that brain of, I am going to be in charge, but not too in charge. Does that make sense? Yeah. And then Brixton House itself, it was built with people with disabilities in mind. Our grid is an accessible grid to anyone. You do not need to go up a ladder to rig a light. You can just go on the grid and rig a light. Our Theatre 2 grid comes down to waist height, and you can rig your lights whilst on the ground. All the rooms and all the places in Brixton House were designed with that in mind. And I remember saying to my boss, why don't we get a lot more people to come in and see this space? He is pushing for people to come and see the space and work in the space. But it's also then some people are on that opinion that theatre is a dangerous place, as you said. Some people are still on that mentality of theatre is a dangerous place. It is not a dangerous place. Once you know your way around it, it's actually just a big sand pitch for you. You have toys. Of course, you have time restraints, and you're told you need to finish playing with this toy in this time. Still want to play with it more, but it's Brixton House to me is just my big sandpit. And I always say to people who come into the building, if you don't know about sound, lighting, video, building, anything, come to me. Because I have experienced all of it. I have experienced the good side of it, and I've experienced the bad side of it. I have worked in theaters that don't have equipment. Like the theater in Zimbabwe. It doesn't have equipment, till this day. I can tell you from right now that there is 5 speakers in the whole building. There is 24 lights in the whole building. They're still using a lighting desk from 1972. Nothing has been upgraded. But that's because the country itself, their arts department doesn't exist. Their arts ministry doesn't exist. If you want to go and watch a show there, and you want to see expensive lights, expensive equipment, you would have to go to separate companies who will provide that. For example, you pay the theatre £100.
Nevi, sorry, can I give you 1 minute?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You pay the theatre £100 for you to do your show. Now you have to pay another £2,000 for different companies to come with equipment. That is the difference between here and Zimbabwe. Am I happy to be here? Yes. Would I rather be at home? Yes. That's sort of how I feel. But yeah, just think about it as theatre is your sandpit. Just find a theatre and take it as your sandpit. Thank you.
Thank you. And last but certainly not least, we have a presentation from Laura McIntyre-Burney, who is the artistic and sound designer, is an artist and a sound designer, and also the artistic director of A Swarm.
Yeah.
A Swarm! So give it up for Thor.
Hi, so I'm a white male that I'm very nearly 50. I'm wearing a blue shirt, blue jeans, and black trainers. I've got brown hair and a bit of a mustache. So I work as a sound designer. I also work as a sound artist. For me, they cross over a lot. The difference maybe as a sound designer, I tend to be working more with a production team, you know, like a theatrical production team. And as an artist, I may be more working on projects that I'm leading myself or that are maybe less performative. I came from fine art as a background, and just briefly to sort of explain how I got into sound is I was working in fine art. Got really engaged in television as a thing, as an object and as a subject. And I started pulling it apart and using it sculpturally, and then I started to get really interested in how the sound and the vision work together. And these two complicit partners of the speaker that's in the telly and the screen, and how they kind of work together, and how as viewers we have a kind of intermittent relationship with TV. You know, we can walk into the kitchen and make a cup of tea and keep track of the program by the sound. And then I got really interested in when you separated the screen and you just have the sound, then it's, in a way, I feel like it's looking for its complicit partner. It's looking for something to kind of work with. And since then, I've moved into a lot of work where looking at how sound can work site-specifically, how it can change a space. When I say site-specific, I mean like working with a particular place, and seeing how you can work with the characteristics of that space, the history of that space, how people use that space, how it functions. So there may be a public space, but there may also be a building. And I've done quite a lot of work in the kind of theatre world where it's site-specific, like promenade productions. So we did a show a while ago in Brighton Town Hall, and it was a series of pinter plays that was set through Brighton Town Hall, and this was an existing town hall, so it was still functioning. But we used the council chambers in the top for a short skit of press conference, and then slowly, as the kind of play was a series of short pinter plays woven together, we walked through the building all the way down into the basement, and in the basement were derelict toilets and old police cells. And so you had these amazing different environments, like a post-sorting room and council chambers and grandiose staircases, and then kind of old toilets that were really rank. And so working with those environments, for me, I find much more inspiring than working in a black box. So although I've worked in a lot of, a fair amount of black box theatre, for me what really gets me going is a place that I can kind of work with. So, I mean, briefly, working with rewinding back to the idea of working with the sound from TV, I did one piece that kind of affected a lot of what I've did since, which was taking the speakers out of 60 different old TVs, hanging them in like an arrangement like a swarm of bees, and then each one was playing the live sound of different television channels. And you got a sort of, the spectacle became the big swarm of speakers, and then you as a viewer, as an audience walking between these speakers, you could effectively channel hop. And for me, what became really interesting is giving how that suddenly gave agency to the audience, and it gave them, it sort of invited them to kind of explore sound and explore sound spatially. And since then, I've been working a lot with spatial sound, and how in a theatre space, for instance, if you can, to work with the sound in the space, to work with the prospect of, essentially you've got your left and right front, but then also you've got your rear, left and right, but you've also got height. In this theatre, it's a bit weird. We've got like speakers right up high, but there's quite a steep rake on the seats. So in different spaces, you've got to think about how the audience at the back, how they perceive it differently to the front. I'm kind of going around in circles a little bit, but what I'm trying to kind of give you an idea of how I think sound design is often thought about in theatre, that it's about just creating something in a black box. And for me, working with black box theatres, I think about them site specifically. So I kind of think about, how does that space work? How are people going to use it? How can we use it? So I have kind of two lines of work. So working sound design and doing kind of these art projects a lot in public spaces. And then we started working with Extant and we've worked on I think 3-4 productions together. And one of them was the chairs, UNESCO, the chairs. And what was lovely about that piece was it's all based around the kind of these imaginary characters that appear on stage, and how we could play with audio description, and how audio description could stop being an add-on, but being sort of part of the soundscape and part of the theatre. And audio description tends to be trying to keep itself removed from, not interfering with the production and trying to keep itself separate. I thought what they did today with the announcements coming in was really inventive. It was great because we had this kind of audio description sort of announcement, but you know, it had humour in it. It was playing with it a bit. I thought that was lovely. And I think audio description is one area that's really interesting to work with, and it's been something we've been developing with Maria and Extant quite a lot, is how, for instance, in the chairs you would have a scenario where one of the actors may be thinking about, he's got to think about bringing a chair on, so we would pre-recorded that, played it in the speakers that were in the, I think we put it slightly rear. When you heard, it was kind of voice in their head thinking chairs, I've got to think of chairs, and then the live actor would suddenly go, chair, I've got to bring a chair on. And so it was audio describing the fact that he was going to get a chair, but it was also thinking about in their mind. And we experimented a bit of recording audio description with the actors in role, and that was really interesting. Some of it worked, some of it didn't, but just thinking about what happens if they're in that mode, if they're in that emotion.
Sorry, could I give you 1 minute? Sorry.
1 minute, sorry, yes. Oh, I'm talking way too much. Anyway, we also worked, so yeah, I'm saying, I think audio description is somewhere that's really interesting to develop.
The bus.
And the bus, yeah. So we had a double-decker bus, and we took people on a journey on a bus that physically didn't go anywhere, but but through sound we took people on journeys. There's some great technology of tactile transducers, which are basically a kind of, it's like a speaker driver that will send vibration through surfaces. We use those to make the whole bus kind of vibrate as if it was moving. Yeah, I think it's probably better that I'll just go to questions.
Thank you, Corey. And thank you to all of the panelists. Thank you all. Lovely stuff. That was very hard to interrupt because it's just three really clearly thorough, detailed, nuanced experiences of your very extensive career. So thank you very much for sharing that with us. And some lovely advice of like, have pointy elbows. Nevia, the word that kept coming to my mind when you were talking was initiative. And Thor also just like playfulness, experimentation. So yeah, lovely. Anyway, now we've got a little bit of time to open for questions. I will just preface by saying we're probably going to overrun by 5 minutes. So, you know, this is relaxed. If you need to duck out, please do. But anyway, if you have questions, Alex is zooming around looking for you. Please raise your hand if you want to ask anything.
I'm heading to the front row on stage right. There's the mic if you wouldn't mind just saying your name.
Hi, it's Amy, sitting in the front row. I'd like to ask Aaron, please. You talk about all the things that you did before you lost your sight, and obviously losing your sight is a totally different experience being born visually impaired like myself. I just wondered if being visually impaired has actually brought anything to your job as well as made you lose things from your job?
Absolutely. Is this on? Yeah. I definitely, absolutely. It was. I decided to not consider piano tuning, or massage, or selling lottery tickets in Spain, and I went to art school because I've always made sculpture, painting, bit of sound and film work as a sort of sideline, thinking, oh, one day I'm going to do that. So in some respects, that kind of motivated me into doing it. The other thing with vision loss was, although that I was still able to design shows, because if you've been doing something for decades, then you know the patterns, you know you know the kit, you know how it works, you know what they've got, so you can do it in your head. But it takes a very long time to do that. But I found I was able to take the, you know, I said about doing particularly kids shows, which I just love doing because it's sparkly. But I couldn't work in international opera houses anymore because it's too fast. Everything happens too fast. And without, maybe if I'd employed assistants and really got into making a case for it and kind of making a feature of it, that here's a lighting designer that can't see anymore, very much anymore. But I didn't want to do that. I thought it was an opportunity for me to change positions and do something different. So it was a bit of a, there was good things and bad things about it, but it did feel like too much of a struggle. And the opportunity to do something else was quite tantalising. Does that
Yeah, thank you. And I think opera as an industry is incredibly inaccessible. You know, I originally trained as an opera singer, so I totally hear you on that.
That is a whole discussion that we do not have time to get into. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Karen. Does anybody else have a question? Make yourself known. Ian, is that you?
Hi, Ian Rattray, next door friend. I'm just thinking about the access side into, certainly the sound side of the industry. Now, the elements of it, I think, which are acceptable, like digital audio workstations. I use one to do, I do the sound I did for today. But part of the problem is it's delivery systems like QLab. Now, I'm not a Mac user, but I know from my experimentation I haven't found a Windows-based delivery system. I mean, how can we apply pressure to make elements like that accessible, which would go some way to breaking down a barrier?
Just very quickly, I recently paid someone to mix something for me because I can't use, for example, Adobe, the icons are so tiny, and it's a bit like a spreadsheet problem. When you magnify it, it becomes so big that the XY, you don't know where you exist in the world. So I just got too sweary and go, you know what? Somebody else can do it, and I'll give them this money, and I'll be really happy not to do it.
Try me next
time. Just a quick answer on that one. There is a Windows version of QLab. It's not the best, but there is a version of it. Orbital made it, and I can't remember the name of it, but if you go on the website, they've got that on there.
I've tried at least two delivery systems, and they're just not accessible to my screen reader. That's the problem. They're created using a software base called Juice. Now, Juice is becoming accessible in part, but some of these earlier systems that have been around for a while haven't shifted to the current version of Juice, so they're not accessible. My screen reader just says nothing. I've got no access to any of the controls whatsoever. So this is why, how do we apply pressure to those who make the software, which would allow us to give us that, apply pressure to those people who make the software to make their products accessible to people like me who use assistive technology. This is the barrier. There's no access to the software, you can't do the job.
I expect some, coming back to you, Ian, I think one of the big things we can do is just grow awareness by pushing VI and blind theatre productions as they are, just to get people to be aware a bit more about it, but also to try and, I'm not sure the best method, but if there's a way that we can promote those to those companies that are producing the software or producing the hardware. I think a lot of it's probably awareness. They're just not really clocking it. I know that QLab is a strange software because it grew from lighting control and then started incorporating sound and then started incorporating video. But consequently, it's kind of built up from that quite visual way of working and quite, for me, coming from not from that area, I find QLab quite counterintuitive. But I think, you know, as a sound designer, I may often work with a technician who will be much better at QLab than I, and I will ask them to do that programming job, and I'll be making the content, and I know what I want, I know what I want it to sound like, and they can program it. So that's, you know, that's not necessarily access. That's a kind of creative decision. So it's, you can kind of, that's another way forward as well. But it is a curious thing. CSC. CSC. And I know about 15 years ago I was using a PC-based, I think it was called Show Control, SFX, and that was on Windows. But I don't know if that's still running. Yeah. It's died, is it?
Yeah. Can I just jump in on this actually? Because I'm not a designer, but I am a blind producer. So I have to work with a lot of different people. And there's two things that I do when the industry isn't making space. First off, I have an access writer that is part of my contract. So they need to, whoever's the employer needs to look at it and agree to and kind of uphold the things that I say I need. And that's you know, if they don't do it at the contracting phase, they don't get to work with me. And also having that attitude of, well, then you don't get to work with me, which I know I'm American, and that's not always a good thing to admit. But there is something about that attitude of like, I know I'm good at this, so you know, if you're not going to make space for me, then this is not going to be a fun experience for anybody. So having that, but also, like Thor was kind of saying, can you collaborate with people? There's a lot of different types of access workers. A creative access worker is something that absolutely exists. So if you can't navigate the software, but you know what you want to make, can you work with somebody who can navigate the software and get people to remove the barriers where software developers probably won't, to be honest?
Well, I'd just ask you about whether it's also putting pressure on the assistive technology designers as well to understand that these types of applications are what we want to use as well.
Yes, but the thing is...
Send them the showcase.
The problem isn't so much with the assistive technology, it's actually the type of the program they use to create these programs. They're just not accessible to any screen reader. So, in fact, the way forward would be to say, no, Jews should not be used.
Get some blind people to make a better one, basically.
I mean, what we do try and, I suppose, go down the road of, disability, what they call it, the disability finger commission. What was human, not human rights? The disability rights, what was the disability rights? Because, I mean, there could be a legal case there, but these companies are around the world, so whether we have any jurisdiction over them, I don't know. But this is a problem, it's all.
I'd say getting, like, sponsorship's another one, and just trying to get one of those companies to sponsor a show. And, you know, companies like in the audio, kind of pro audio magazine world, they're always looking for some kind of story that's interesting. But at the same time, there's the companies that make the hardware or make the software are wanting to advertise not through adverts but through editorial stories. And so if they can be supporting something that's interesting, makes an interesting story, you know, that's another way to kind of get pressure in a kind of positive way that I think could be effective.
Thank you. I'm going to move us on just in case there's one more, hopefully quick question.
I'd like just one there. Just Marcus. Just sneezing for everyone.
Hi, I'm Ada. Hi, I'm Ada. My question is, how can opportunities, developmental opportunities where someone can be immersed within an organisation can be developed? Is it the organisation's role to build those spaces, or is it us as artists to approach them? Because working more and more in this industry, I'm realizing, you know, the industry is filled with freelancers, but there aren't enough long-term or immersive developmental opportunities within organisations to work and develop and experience the career or the roles that you may want to work with. So I know we're saying make space for ourselves, but how are we able to move forward in that?
I think it's a case of that you just got to get really down and dirty with it and go make a really good case and make it to an institution that suits you, that you'd like to do that in, and then get a dialogue going. They're not going to do it unless unless there's something in it for them. So it really is, and I think it has got much more difficult. As you say, freelancers have become much more prevalent, even with the larger companies.
Can I just add? I think you should also be, as visually impaired creatives, be more bold and ask why. Then in that case, so if I don't know, a theatre company would say, oh no, you can't work with us for blah 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 reason, you're visually impaired. The theatre space might be unsafe. Why? And we need to ask them why, and then get them to tell us, you know, to explain to us why.
And actually, sorry, go on.
Yeah, and admit
just
it.
to add more to what you're saying, what's in it for them is you.
Exactly. Of course, yeah.
But you've got to bear in mind.
Maybe Thor, do you want to answer the question?
Just,
Sorry, Ian.
Just to chip in there about, you know, the way arts funding is going more and more now, is that anyone who's receiving any sizable amount of money has to be accountable for the fact that they're dealing with diversity and that they're actually trying to break the bubble that's been in, you know, and that's a prerequisite of their funding. So I think what happens a lot in the arts, I sometimes, you know, when I try and reflect on the industry of, you know, why is it that we end up with the same kind of white, male, middle class people in some areas, for instance, like, why does that happen? And sometimes it's about, you know, you're doing a job, it's going to be in the rain, it's going to be 3 in the morning, you're trying to rig something and make it happen, the show's opening tomorrow. Who are you going to call on? You're going to call on someone that you've worked with before, who you've got some trust with, and someone that you can rely on. And consequently, if that bubble has been kept fed by the same thing, you're employing the same kind of person. But the industry is, the only way they're going to break that is to just bump people in and just go, actually, no, we need to bring people into that cycle. So when I look back and go, who did I work with before? It needs to be someone who was visually impaired, for instance, who is, you know, neurodiverse or whatever. I think that's one of the, you know, we need to look at that, you know, go to those institutions that they maybe don't have those connections. So go there and say, I'm here.
I mean, I can add one thing, which is force your way in. Because I don't know if I should say this, but I'm just going to say it anyway. I had a tough time trying to get into theatre in the UK, only because of my skin colour. Most theatres are run by white old men. And as a black man trying to get into that theatre, you are not treated the same as Mark from Essex. Does that make sense? It's like, I just forced my way in. And with Brixton House being built, I literally forced my way into that building. I said, you want a sound engineer, you saw what I did with the show, it toured, it came back in one piece. I can do the job, give me the job. It's just pushing your way in. And even if it means you're camping outside the theatre doors, do it. They will let you in at some point.
And also remember your community. Remember your community. You've got Extant, you've got a bunch of blind people in this room that are ready to fight with you for this stuff.
And theatres really want to be accessible. I think one of the best pieces of advice, like if you can come with an access rider, if you can come with saying you have an access need and you know how to solve it, or you know what you need, they will bite your hand off. Instead of saying I can't do this, come and say I need this.
Yeah.
And they will bite your hand off because like you've turned up with how you want to work, and they get to tick the box like they did that work themselves.
Right, we've got one more question from Martin, and then we'll wrap up. Over to Martin.
It seems to me that Extant is very London-centric, and I'm just wondering, why didn't they ever try to expand outside of London?
Let's say that one, because yeah. We think.
Microphone is coming, hang on.
Martin, it's Maria here. So Extant has worked periodically outside of London, and we still do. We have Louisa, who is our artist development manager, working with partners at the Lowry and also at the Arena as well. Extant, in terms of proportion of funding that we receive from the Arts Council, is minute in comparison with other theatre companies and other disability-led theatre companies. So we've always punched above our weight and done as much as we can. We do have a responsibility around making things as accessible as possible, and those take up quite a lot of resources, and we are a very tiny team. So we do our best, and we have some high ambitions in the next financial year and next 3-year period. So I'd say stick with us, and hopefully we'll be able to involve you as much as we can, as much as you need us to. Thank you.
I own my own theatre company for visually impaired people, it's basically a duplicate of Extant. You can stay in London, and my business partner, Abby, to my left here, will take everything else.
I was in Bradford yesterday. And they've won City of Culture for 2025, and they're really excited about that. Hit Bradford up,
Yeah. Also, like the Newcastle have done with access schemes. Probably
Also, there's Quiplash up in Sheffield. What? Who said that? Oh! There's a company that I happen to know is run by two incredibly talented, attractive people. One of them is me. How do you know? How do I know? I just know, okay? I have a good sense for these things.
Allocation stage in Manchester.
Woo! Yeah. There's loads up north. Things might move slowly. It is not out of a lack of desire. It is out of a need to do things ethically.
Grey Eye Beyond are recruiting.
What?
Grey Eye Beyond are recruiting.
Oh,
They say what artists to be up north.
Yeah.
But
So-
anyway,
Anyway, on that lovely note, basically, what the moral of that is we're taking over the entire country and then the world, right? Okay. Which is a lovely note to end on. So please give thanks to all of us.
Image fades to black, and a white screen fades up. The credits roll, and the purple Extant logo appears, followed by black text. Pathways Crew and Design Showcase and Roundtable, recorded live on Friday the 3rd of February 2023 at Canada Water Theatre. Creative Team: Crew and Design, 1-to-1, Paula Connolly, Louis Thrift, Lillian, Amy Bethan Evans. Real Work: Ian Rattray, Martin Fawkes, Karan Collins, Avi Ramrekha. Extant Showcase Director: Caroline Jayaratnam Joyner. Director: Anthony Goff. Associate Director, Movement and Audio Description, Ada Aravama. Compare, Amelia Cavallo. Actors, Anita Bazi, Douglas Walker, Luke Fox. Dramaturg, Louisa Samfay. Access Workers, Chikodi Nuawu, Alice James, Marina Sava, Darius Gervinskas. Stage Manager, Alex Rivers. Technician 1, Stefan Nyman. Roundtable Panellists, Dr. Aaron McPeak, Nevi Kusukura, Thor McIntyre Burney. BSL Interpreters, Deborah McLeod, Sharon Goldson. Video production by Primo Digital Video Productions. Cameras, Paul Veer. Edited by Alan Bowyer. Technician 2, courtesy of Canada Water Theatre and the Albany. The Extant Team, Artistic Director, Maria Ashodi. Artist Development Manager, Louisa Samfay. Extant Administrator, Jamie Mayer. Extant Senior Manager, Operations and Strategy, Fiona Greenhill. And Accounts, Kate Kempin. Pathways was funded by the Arts Council England, Leather Sellers Company Charitable Fund, Ulverscoft Foundation, the Wingate Foundation, the Spectacle Makers Charity, and the Thomas Pocklington Trust. Copyright Extant Theatre, 2023.